Today's guest is Jill, connected on IGY6, and I believe that's how we got in touch, right? I guess so. You found IGY6 podcast,
yeah, through Instagram,
yeah, in the last week, and she has a very moving story that a lot of us in the IGY6 community can relate to, and we talked, got on the phone yesterday, and we just hit it off, and we wanted to come on today and talk a little bit about her story and raise more awareness, like many of us are trying to do. And just the first one to say is we're all here for you, and I'm happy we connected. And happy Mother's Day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the connection, because it's, when I connect with the military because of my son, it makes me feel somewhat closer to him, if that even makes sense, to feel close to people you've never met. But there is that bond, when you've gone military. I have a site I created called aftermathofsuicide.com, and my son committed suicide December 27th, 2014. And my world as I knew it was over. It was blown up, detonated. I never saw it coming. Mike never threatened before. He was a Robin Williams, always making somebody laugh and picking people up, and and a lot of just compounded grief that he never dealt with over the last probably 3 years of his life. The death of my dad was devastating to Mike, which my dad pretty much kind of raised Mike. They were very close. And one of Mike's fears was that he was going to die. Pop would die, he said. What if Pop died when I was in Iraq? And I said, Mike, my dad was 81, but the odds of that, I said.
Right.
And guess what?
He did.
My dad died the day my son was flying home.
Oh, man. Flying home too. So.
Flying home.
Jeez.
And he was so excited, and I was so excited, and then my dad dies. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I have to greet my son with this message. I was so torn from, grieving my dad's death, happy my son was coming home.
It's a lot of different emotions, high and lows.
To this day, I still am not over that. I still haven't. I could still, the feeling inside that I get when I think back about it, when I had to greet my son and tell him that.
Yeah. And
he just sobbed. He fell to the floor. And he was never right, really, after that. That was probably the real thing that started his downfall. But
did Mike have, so that was like his male presence in his
Yeah. I mean, my ex-husband, adopted Mike when Mike was 6. So, okay. Steve loved him. That's the father Mike really knew, and which is Nicole's dad, my daughter's dad. And, but, my dad, we were all close. My dad and I were extremely close. So that made Mike, Mike would sleep over there, and they were inseparable. And
that's
they were
awesome.
Great, so he was a big father figure to my son. And that's where my son took his life, was at my dad's, where my dad's buried, at the Veterans Memorial Cemetery, which is now where my son is buried.
Yep.
So when I go there, I get to see that picture every time I visit, my son taking his life there. So, like I said, at 58 or 57, I was when Mike died, trying to start over a new life at that age was so difficult.
Yeah, starting over at any age too, just and with that stuff going on.
Yes.
In your mind, that's got to be.
Yeah, I had to make a new life, because not only when my son took his life, but 6 months after my son took his life, my then husband, by a text message, told me he was leaving the marriage.
Wait a minute. A text message?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh my God.
A text message that he didn't want to be married anymore.
Wow.
And so that was another loss for me.
Wow. How long were you guys married?
It was going to be a year, like just
Okay.
shy of a few weeks.
Okay.
And needless to say, that was another I spiraled. I mean, I couldn't comprehend all the loss. I didn't know how to deal with it all.
Hmm.
My daughter was in college in LA, so she wasn't there with me all the time, so I did. I had a mental breakdown, and I ended up in a hospital.
Did
And
you have anyone that you could even talk to, or were you just keeping all your thoughts to yourself during
well,
this?
I mean, I had an Italian family. So I had my
Yep.
sister, I had my nephews. They were, as they say, a death either brings you closer or tears you apart. And sadly, it tore us apart,
Yeah.
but for other reasons as well. But at that time, sure, they all rallied around me, but they were grieving just as much over Mike's death.
Hmm.
My sister was his godmother. They were extremely close. So we couldn't help each other,
Hmm.
really. And yet they didn't know how to deal with depression, which hit me so hard. From
Wait, who didn't know how to deal with depression?
my family didn't. They really
Yeah, we
didn't.
talked a little bit about this yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't understand that, and I spiraled so deep into such severe depression.
You were by
From
yourself.
basically, yeah. I mean, Bill was leaving, and I had to move out of the house, and I ended up in a hospital, and then I moved in with my sister and brother-in-law, which is where my mom lived. And
Mhm.
I lived there for 3 months, and then I had to have a full hip replacement.
Jeez.
So, yeah, I had all of that in 9 months. It was too much. I didn't know, as strong as I am, how to deal with it. Thank you. I mean, it was something my son always said he admired so much about me was my strength.
Yeah.
He knew how I did it sometime, and I was a single mom for quite a while. And I really was the glue, that
Right.
hung, it brought everything together, as my dad was the glue for us.
Hmm.
So, so I'm trying to deal with comprehending my son's suicide. My whole life exploded. I've lost just about everything but my daughter, thank God. But at that time, I was in such deep despair. I had PTSD, terrible, from the trauma of just receiving Mike's text message that he was going to go visit Pop, he said, but he's not coming back.
Hmm.
And I knew right then and there that he meant it, because
Hmm.
Mike never threatened to take his life before. And so like I said, I've never
You knew
been the
something was off.
same.
You know your son, you knew your son, and you knew something was
Yeah,
wrong. Yeah.
I knew it. I knew it. And yet there was a part of me that wished, I was wrong, and that they would find him. And so we were all scrambling and calling the cemetery, because that's where I figured he was. That's what he told us.
Hmm.
And so my ex said that when he got there was yellow tape everywhere.
Mm.
And he knew. And the cop came over and said, "Did you want to, identify the body?" And my ex said no. And he showed him his license, and he said, "Is this your son?" And he just broke down and cried. And
Ugh,
that was
so
the
sorry.
end of the hope that you hold on to, And so he hated to have to tell me that. And that was, like I said, it's been a long, dark road. I know what hell is like. I've lived there. I've lived in it for several years. The first 2 years, I was passive suicidal. I didn't want to live. I wished so many times I wouldn't wake up. I begged God to not wake me up. I couldn't really take my life because I couldn't do that to my daughter, my family. But
How
I
much?
also,
What's the age difference between Mike and your daughter?
4.5 years.
She's younger or older?
Yeah, younger. And, he was her hero. So he hurt a lot of people. I mean, suicide is devastating
Yeah,
to
I
the
know. They
left
usually say,
behind.
yeah, they usually pass the pain over to the ones that are.
Oh God, I describe it as a life sentence of hell.
Hmm.
It's a life sentence of pain that never quite goes away, especially for a parent. But he left a lot of people in pain and a lot of people angry. That's a real common grief stage to have is the anger.
Well, everyone's scratching their heads. It leaves everybody confused. And, you know, did we see this sign? Like, you know, sometimes you don't, sometimes you do. It's a very,
right. And like I said, I mean, you know, Mike had his moments, but he hit it well. And, you know, to his friends, he was the go-to guy. So they all looked to him.
I've known many Marines that have taken their lives, and it's, you know, there's this mask, the mask that you put on.
Absolutely.
You know, just because someone's smiling and, you know, has all the nice Instagram and Facebook photos doesn't mean they're the happiest.
Right.
You
No,
know?
it's true. Like, you know, Mike was a Robin Williams. I mean, he made everybody laugh. He was the life of the party, and he picked you up, and he was always fixing and helping somebody and bitching and moaning while he was doing it. But
he didn't get that from you, right?
Not at all. You know, Mike would just go tell you to, shut the fuck up. I mean, that's how he talked. He was a George Carlin, really, as far as humor.
How did he get into the Army? What inspired him to do that, and what did he?
I did. I did. Okay. I knew that Mike needed a structure.
That's how I was. Yeah.
Okay. He was somewhat mildly OCD.
Okay.
And he needed structure. His life after high school was, he didn't really want to go to college. I mean, he started out and then it wasn't for him. And Mike was extremely bright. Like, you could talk to him about politics, religion, any topic. At 5 years old, he was sitting with old people having a conversation. He was an old soul. Mm-hmm. But he just was restless. And, so one morning I got up to go to work. It was 7 a.m. and Mike was still up playing video games.
This is like after high school?
Well, no, he was now 18, like 21, 22.
Oh, so many years after.
Yeah, I mean, he was working, but he wasn't. To me, that was, you're not doing this. I said, you're not going to sit around with your life just playing video games, going nowhere. Yep. So I said, either you join the military or you're going to move out. And that's what he did. And actually, it was the best thing that he did. And he thought about re-enlisting. And yet he didn't. But a lot of me wishes he did, because he needed that. And when he came out, like most of you, he was lost, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. When you get out, it's such a big transition, and there's really nothing to prepare you for it. I mean, I talk about in one of my podcasts is they give us a fucking class on how to write a resume. Well, why don't you teach us how to become a civilian again? You know, I
remember him saying that there was they all got in this room before they, I guess, boarded the plane, and they give them like a briefing for, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, that's it? I mean, what are we supposed to do? We're used to getting up, whatever, at 5 and making your bed and running and whatever you do.
Oh, yeah. You're under the microscope 24/7 with a purpose.
Absolutely. He was lost. And Mike is an organizer and everything, color coordinated closet. And, so someone like that, you're going to just throw him home. And
it's a big disruption.
What's he supposed to do?
Yeah.
He was lost. And yet, like many of you, he didn't want to leave the house for a while.
Yeah, you isolate yourself.
PTSD. He was paranoid. Whenever we went somewhere, he always had to have his back, his face to the door. Right. He needed to see. So, it took him a while. I'd say several months to get out of the house.
Did he go do like therapy and stuff? Because you could tell the audience about the VA story. Remember when you were telling me yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, I said to him, Mike, I think maybe why don't you go to the VA? They have help for, you veterans. And he looked at me and he said, are you kidding me? First of all, he said, that's for pussies, any type of medication. And, because in the military, they teach you to man up. So
right.
I said, but Mike, there's a lot of people that do get help and, it's free. Go there. And he said, Mom, it takes 5 weeks just to get an appointment.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And then you don't see the same doctor when you go back. And I said, 5 weeks? When you're suicidal or you're depressed, you don't have 5 weeks.
No.
You sometimes don't even have 5 minutes.
No.
you need help now. And sadly, I mean, as we talked about it, it's gotten better, but it's a long way to go before the military really get the help they need. That's hence the 22 veterans a day taking their life.
Yeah.
Sad, very sad, And when I was looking back and I'm in it now, I think about, Jill, maybe you should have pushed more. Maybe you should have.
Well, you can't go back and look on it like that,
Should haves, the would haves, the could haves.
I
do that. Not so much anymore, but I did it for the first. It was my mantra. I mean, I felt guilty. I felt as a mother, knowing he suffered with depression on and off, I should have known better. I should have done this.
But you can't read minds.
Well, and I couldn't make him. He was 30 years old.
No, you can't. It is no one to, you can't look at it that way.
I couldn't you can't make people want to get help. But yet as his mother, I just,
right.
It's so painful to think of my son, that he was that sad that he had to take his life just to have the pain gone.
Yeah,
it's so when my mission now is to help.
So that's how I kind of was reading your website. You got a book coming out. So can you tell us a little bit how it's probably helping you too as therapy, and it's also probably in raising awareness for suicide.
Absolutely. I remember when I saw my therapist, and I knew right away I needed help. I absolutely knew it. I could not do this on my own, trying to help myself with this type of severe depression, on top of losing my child, on top of a marriage ending, on top of a hip replacement. I was emotionally and physically bankrupt, so I knew right away, and I got a great therapist. And by the way, if you're looking for therapists, you want to make sure that you ask a therapist, are you, skilled or you have a background in treating grief, in treating depression, or maybe suicide loss? Those are all key questions.
Because there's phonies out there.
Oh, and there's, therapists that are just marriage counselors.
Or life coaches.
Right. That's not
a registered doctor.
No, and not for the help that we needed, not for the help I needed. And so it was great to be with James, and he really helped me through the stages. And the first thing he said to me was, Jill, this is going to be the hardest job you ever had. And I said, job? What do you mean job? And he said, the grief work is work. You have to do this work, or it's going to hit you down the road and it's going to be worse. And so when he said work, it was the 7 stages of grief, right?
What are those? What are those?
You've got the shock, you have denial, you have anger, you have acceptance is the last one. You have, I'm drawing a blank.
No, that's okay. Probably didn't expect a quiz today.
You have the pleading, to God, right? For all kinds of things that you go through, and then at the end, it's accepting the reality. And I'm not even there. There's days I still shake my head and say to myself that he couldn't have done this. That did he really do this? I can't even get to that point yet at 5 years. And so that's what, when he said that's going to be the hardest job you ever did, Jill. And he was right. It was grueling to face each of those stages. And sometimes you'll go from one stage to another and back to the first one.
Up and down.
And there's no right or wrong. There's no way to do it. It's in your own time. Nobody can tell you when it's over. That's for you to know that.
Right, and you're staring right at you in your face.
Oh my God! And I thought, oh my God! And every morning, I'd wake up and that reality would hit me, and my stomach would drop. And the thought of, this is my life. Mike's really gone, and I just couldn't. I couldn't comprehend it. I couldn't. I mean, like I said, there's still days that think to myself, no, he would never do this to us. And I realized he didn't do this to us, but it affected us. It affected his best friends, my family, his friends. And I mean, Mike's memorial, there was over 300 people that showed up, standing only. And I was stunned. I had a little chapel side of the Veterans Memorial Cemetery, the chapel with a partition that only had about, I think, 50 to 100 seats. And I didn't even think that many would even come. I had no clue. We had to open up the partition, and thank God there was no one on the other side so that people can pile in. And I turned around and looked, and it was overwhelming to me to see the love that was there for Mike, that many people showed up of those that could make it. And I thought, God, I wish he could have loved himself as much as everybody did that was here. So that was a testament to, I knew how much, Mike changed people's lives. Everywhere I went in town, even his sister, he
was her hero, right?
Absolutely. And everywhere she went, when they'd hear her last name, Kissel, they'd say, are you Mike's sister? And she'd say, yeah. And they'd go like, wow, Mike. And then they'd go into some story about Mike and what he did. And, her last name, they called her Kissel because they called him Kiss. Mike's nickname was Kiss.
Why is that? How do you get that?
Kissel.
Okay,
Kissel,
yeah.
right? So they call him Kiss. Are you Kiss's brother, sister? Yeah. And so you have to hear this story real quick, Brian. One day, the first 5 months that Mike was gone, it was the Memorial Day, right? May, Memorial Day, the day before. And I was thinking about Memorial Day with all the military and the veterans and Mike. And I'm sitting out in my yard, as I always did, drinking my coffee. And I would talk out loud to him. Mike, do you hear me? Send me a sign. I mean, I don't even know if you hear me. Are you happy? Are you happier? Was it worth it? And so the next morning, the front of the paper, of course, is, the Veterans Memorial Cemetery, and they have the flags and they do a big spread for veterans. Well, I didn't get the paper because internet now, everybody was on internet.
Right.
So people were calling me saying, Jill, did you read the paper? And I said, I don't get the paper. They said, you need to go out and get it. And I did. And on the front cover, like I said, was big, huge picture of Boulder City Veterans Memorial Cemetery in Boulder City, Nevada. And I open it up and there's pages, of pictures and whatever. And I come to one of the pages that had a row full of just names of the stones with the internments with their name, on the outside. And at that time, Mike's was the last row because he was the most recent soldier. And everything else, the stones were empty. There was nothing written on them. And they took a snapshot of all the thousands of military soldiers that were there. They took Mike's row of all the rows that they could have taken.
Wow.
And at the very end, Brian, they cut off part of Mike's name. And the only name they caught in that picture was Kiss. Which is the name everybody called him.
Coincidence.
Exactly. And I thought, oh my God, he's telling me, Mom, I hear you. I hear you, Mom.
That's
and
wild.
This is what, I couldn't believe it. It gave me like goosebumps.
Yeah.
And I thought, isn't that strange?
Yeah.
So that was, I guess, my sign of taking that Mike heard me, and I guess he's happier now.
Yeah.
Who knows, so those are the things that a lot of us do. We look for signs and, is he talking to me and can he hear me? And, we don't know really.
Coping mechanism.
I guess, just, those little signs, right? The times of the clock and different things. Mike's birthday will come up November 15. I'll see that a lot. I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, it's there.
Yeah.
And so
After the 2 years, you said it was like 2 years of hell. What kind of helped you get kind of out of the hell?
yeah, so within the first 4 months, I started a Facebook page called Suicide Unofficial because I couldn't call it official. It wasn't a business. I just started it sort of to reach out for people that maybe suffered and for parents that had gone through the loss of a child, for suicide survivors. I didn't really know. I was just throwing it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And partly for me to get on to Mike's Facebook page too, to keep in touch with his friends and, all of those things. And I started getting quite a following just by, word of mouth. Somebody would refer my page to someone else. Before I know it, I had over 800 followers.
Wow.
And and I thought, I don't even know most of these people.
So this is like a Facebook page, right?
Right.
So are you guys just communicating like what, their experiences and stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think why I got such a following was I was so vulnerable. I would tell my story. I would get out there and as raw as I could be and tell you everything, how rock bottom I was, how passively suicidal I was. I had PTSD and anxiety disorder and, what all those signs are and what I did to help myself stay alive when I wanted to, like I said, just not wake up every single day. I was disappointed about it. I was awake and alive. And so it was kind of nice to see private messages coming through that I was actually helping some of these people not take their life.
Yeah. And you were, it seems like it was helping you too, because it sounds like you're finally getting that like big support group and people can finally relate to you.
Absolutely, it was. And it was helping my grief to help someone else.
Right.
And I remember James, my therapist, telling me, when he was doing the therapy, and I looked at him, I said, how do you do this? How do you sit here with people that are sobbing and so down and so suicidal? And, and I said, thank God there's people like you.
Yeah, I would automatically get down too. If I was around that, you know what I mean? Like just seeing someone so sad would make me feel sad for them. And then
especially somebody like me, I take everything like, I take on the pain of everyone.
Right. You're an Italian mom.
I am. And I'm also a Pisces for those that I read natal charts. So I'm a Pisces. And so Pisces feel the weight of everyone above them because they are the last sign of the zodiac.
Okay.
So they bear the weight, and I do. I could feel I was in sales most of my career, and I could read people really well, very quickly. So I feel that even if it's a sadness of whatever it is. And I looked at him, I said, God, I could never do anything like this. And he said, well, not right now, but maybe. And I remember saying, there's no way I could ever help anybody. There's no way I could talk about this. And look at me now. Here I am.
Well, that's the thing. I was doing a podcast earlier with Chris Michaels, and he was telling me, we were discussing it. Just by us sharing our experiences is helping us because we're opening up, and it's also helping others. And it's helping others it's because they feel like they can relate and they're not alone.
Yeah, there's a camaraderie, sadly, with people in this. I call it a club. I'm in this loss of a child club that I don't want to be in. But there's other parents that understand that, and they need somebody else to talk to too that can understand the loss of a child, the loss of someone to suicide, mental illness, dealing with all of that. So it does help. And, this gal wrote to me on Facebook and she said, just listening to your story and how your son's death affected you so deeply. She said, I couldn't do this to my mom, and I went and got help.
Wow.
And I thought, thank you, Lord.
Just by sharing your story can help.
I saved somebody's life, and that's my whole purpose to share this, right? Mm-hmm. Is to help save a life. We have to. We must do our part.
And that's the whole part of the podcast of this, is to share my struggles and anybody else's. And that way, it turns into a community which you had,
Absolutely.
and just let veterans know it's okay to not be okay.
It is. It's okay. And actually, it's brave to ask for help.
Yeah.
It is brave for people to say, you know what? I can't do this. I can't do this by myself. I really need some help. And it's not to where you should be ashamed. You
No.
know, there's people that live a life of pretense and, this living in a big home and all the flashy cars and all of that. Sometimes they should be ashamed more than we should be ashamed, because they're hiding behind this mask of really not living authentically
Right.
who they are.
Right.
And they have just as deep of struggles as we do. We just don't see it.
I was telling somebody this a couple of weeks ago. I connect with people that struggle and are real. And if I see someone that's like, I got the mask on and everything's good, I just can't really relate.
No, I know. I don't do well with those people.
I mean, not being like against them or anything, but I just feel like it's just not everybody's struggling with something.
Right. And it's one thing to look, don't get me wrong. I like nice things. I do.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
Right. But to be that, I'm better than you because I have a Chanel bag kind of stuff. I can't be around those kind of people. But it's okay to like nice things, but also be real.
Right.
I've always been real. As a child, I was always way too honest. My dad used to say, "Why don't you lie once in a while?" Because I was. But he always taught me, if I catch you lying, I'll break both of your arms. I'll never forget my dad telling me that. So I would run home as a kid and tell him whatever I did, afraid that he would find out before I told him.
And it instilled honesty in you.
Yeah, and that was Mike. Mike was just. You want to know, you want to know the truth, go ask Mike. Go ask Jill. They'll tell you. They're not going to be bullshitting you. And so, I just felt like, and especially now since Mike's death, there's less and less I tolerate in bullshit because I don't want to. I don't want to.
You've dealt with enough.
If I could survive my son's death, I could survive just about any loss of somebody.
Just hearing your story, you're a very strong woman. I'll tell you that.
Well, thank you. Not if you saw me like 3 years ago. I was.
Yeah, but look at you now. You're sitting here talking on a Zoom podcast. It's wild. During a pandemic.
If anybody told me I would be doing this, I would have said, "You are crazy. There is no way I will ever have the strength or could ever muster up not crying through the whole thing."
Yeah.
But I do it for my daughter too, and my rock, my man. Joe is he's my lifesaver, and he's my rock.
How long have you guys been married?
3.5 years.
Oh, wow.
We've been together.
So he's right around where you started getting out of that 2-year hell.
Absolutely. And I moved to the East Coast because I couldn't stay in Las Vegas where Mike took his life. Every corner was a trigger. Okay. Everywhere was a trigger. My daughter was in LA finishing college, so she wasn't there. And I thought, what am I doing here? I mean, long story short, I went to Carlsbad. I lived in Marina del Rey to be close to Nicole. But I was alone. As close as I was with her, she was always with her friends.
Yeah, you're alone during those times. Yeah,
I was really lonely. And so I said, oh, God, okay, I'm going to go back to Vegas where I knew everybody. My sister was there. But more and more, I just pulled away from people because they really didn't understand depression. And I felt alone. Even though I had people around me, I was lonely.
Yeah.
So my girlfriend's out in New Jersey where my parents were born. I lived here for a little bit.
What town?
2007. I live in Fairfield, Caldwell, Montclair. Where Montclair University is?
Yeah.
Right there. So my girlfriend Linda said, Jill, why don't you come back to New Jersey? We made you laugh. You had fun here. There were Italians, same culture. And I said, you know what? Why not? I don't have anything keeping me here. I wasn't working at the time. I couldn't actually function to carry on.
You couldn't focus on anything.
I was not well. And in fact, going back to that within those 9 months, 3 months later, I admitted myself again to an outpatient mental health facility in San Diego because I knew I needed help still. I knew it. And I just couldn't do it by myself. And I was alone, living in an apartment, by myself, not seeing my daughter enough and really knowing no one. So
you're a warrior. The fact that you going through this, then you're going back, to get help. I mean, that's just listening to this should just inspire people to, you can get through it if you get help.
Well, and that's what, I want to tell people. I mean, I was at my darkest moments where I went through every just about major loss that there is per James. He said, Jill, I've seen a lot of people come through my doors, but I have never seen anyone that has lost all the major losses at one time. You had the loss of a child, a loss of a marriage. You had to move out of your home. I basically had to give up my career because it was in sales and I couldn't sit in front of somebody.
What kind of sales?
I was in vacation ownership. I worked for Hilton for over 10 years.
Okay.
And I was, one of their top producers. And you have to be on your game when you're in sales. You have to be up and.
Oh, it's tough. It's competitive.
It's draining. And yet, as real as I was, it's still draining.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. So I had to, and that was a 6-figure a year job. And so I lost everything. And so here I was. He said, I've never seen anybody lose. And I was drowning. I literally was just staying afloat. I felt like a buoy. I felt like this little tiny, what do you call those boats? Just out in a storm. I was in a storm.
Yeah.
And so that's why the cover of my book, as you see, it's called Overcoming a Life Destroyed. How the devastating impact of mental illness, how it took my son's life and almost mine. And on the front cover, I created where I wanted it to have a storm. Because I was in a storm. I mean, I was being swallowed up. I couldn't barely breathe. And then I'd go down again, and then I'd come back up. And I just
kept fighting. You kept fighting.
I don't know how I did it, Brian. I don't know. By the grace of God, and at that time living for my daughter, really, I knew. And yet I came like almost this close. I just wanted to die.
So then you went back, you checked yourself back in, and then is that where you really started seeing changes? Over time,
Well, no, because that was basically, it hadn't even been the year mark for my son's death.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we were in November. See, Mike's birthday though was coming. Okay. It was November. It was going to be the year anniversary right after Christmas. And it was starting to just bring me down again. I was just
the holidays.
Oh my God. And I couldn't deal with it all. And Mike's birthday not only was just a birthday, but Mike turned 30 in November. That was his last birthday before he took his life. So that was a major milestone birthday. We all went to Disneyland to celebrate. Mm-hmm. My sister turned 60. My son turned 30. So now every birthday, I think of that major big party we had.
You're getting triggered by everything.
Every time. And then here comes the year mark, right after Christmas. So that holiday is always a cloud. Always a cloud. When I wanted to be happy and merry, it's really hard. It took me 3 years just to put up a Christmas tree because I just couldn't. I couldn't even open the box with all the ornaments and see the ornaments of Mike that he made as a child. That was another trigger. And then putting up a stocking was another trigger.
Everything's reminding you of everything.
There's always triggers. It doesn't end after the funeral. It's just the beginning, really. Mm-hmm. It's just the beginning of a long road ahead without my son for everything. Everything we do, Mike will never be there. So, that first 11 months, I was in and out of hospital twice within 4 months. So, and I just trudged along, and thank God, I moved out here because I do laugh a lot, as you know. East Coast people are funny. Italians are funny. And then I met
loud. You guys are loud.
loud, and I had some family still here on my mom's side, and my good friends that were always by my side through all of it. And
Still to this day, right?
So I had actually more support from friends than I did my own family.
Wow. Well, you see who people show their true colors in situations like that.
Oh, I say that. Your true colors of people come out when something like this happens, good and bad.
That's great.
Yeah. So here I am with Joe, and he's the best thing that ever happened to me.
You guys got, I saw on the website, you got 2 dogs?
Yeah, my little sweet baby. The black one's my little sweet pea.
What kind of dogs?
She's a silky toy poodle, and Brutus is a Pomeranian.
Okay.
And they're both 16.
Oh, wow.
16 years they've been with me through everything.
Wow.
And, so that's another thing in my mind I know is coming, that I'm going to lose.
Oh, you'll get through it.
I don't know. I just feel like I don't do death well anymore. Every time somebody dies or there's a death I hear about,
well, it triggers that.
Suicide, I just don't do well. And I know that's coming. I mean, but they're also my emotional support companions. I've legally got them registered because they give me so much love.
My dog just started crying in his sleep.
What's your dog's name?
Mister. As soon as you said that. He was dreaming. That's funny. As soon as you said that.
What kind of dog do you have?
He's a lab mix.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. I remember having a chocolate lab.
Yeah.
So they are my babies. I mean, They give me so much love and laughter, and Brutus is a character, the one that's a palm. Yeah. He is a character, and he's into everything still.
Yeah.
He's smart. Sweet Pea has dementia, sadly. She doesn't know where she is, what her name is. When you call her, she doesn't understand. She sits and just stares at the wall. I mean, it's comical, but it's sad.
Yeah.
So
what's the latest on the book? So people that are listening can be on the lookout for that.
With everything happening from the coronavirus, people are on a skeleton crew.
Right.
A lot of the companies.
Everywhere.
So it's sort of, delayed a little more than I wanted. I'm hoping for midsummer.
Okay.
For it to be out. It is on my website, so I have it posted, and I will make sure when it is available that I let everyone know. I am on, please follow me on YouTube on Aftermath of Suicide, as well as my Instagram. My Facebook is now, they're all the same name, Aftermath of Suicide. And my website, aftermathofsuicide.com. There is a page there that you can reach out to me. It's under the Contact Jill page. But so my book is actually a memoir of my very first day, the way that minute the text came through, what I did, every step of the way, my first week, my first month, my first year, how I survived, what I did to survive, signs of depression in children. You'd be surprised, how many people I didn't really think a 6-year-old could be depressed. And my son was. Mm-hmm. And the symptoms of depression in children are different, So I lay all that out there. I try to give people a wealth of information.
Good.
Where they don't have to try to do what I did. I had to go online and research and try to find a therapist and try to, so I've laid it all out where I could try to give you as much information as I can to help you through every stage I went through. I also met a gentleman named Kevin Hines. Do you know who he is, Brian?
Kevin Hines.
Kevin Hines.
Should I?
He was one of the very few that actually survived jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh, wow.
You have to see that video. It's just Google, I survived jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. So he was so inspiring and schizophrenic and psychosis. Okay. And, he had voices telling him, you're worthless. Nobody loves you. Jump. You need to jump. And so he was, I want to say 17. It's actually been 20 years. It was year 2000. And I'm from the Bay Area, so I know that bridge very well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It is ominous. It is huge. And so when I listened to that, it was about a 5-minute video. I just kept rewatching it and rewatching
Connected to it.
I mean, just the thought, being there myself. When he jumped, he said it was 70. He went 75 miles per hour in 4 seconds, and he hit the water.
How bad was he hurt?
Oh, he crushed everything.
Everybody,
he was so broken that when he dove, and he said this though, and this is why it kind of helped me. I guess I wanted to know that second that my son pulled the trigger, did he regret it? Did he regret it right then and there? And I know he did. And so Kevin says that. He said, every single person I've asked that has survived this jump, every one of them said the millisecond my hands left the rail, I regretted it instantly.
That should be more, that should be definitely detailed and shared and,
Absolutely. And he said, no one's going to know I didn't want to die. And I thought, isn't that interesting that they just were in pain, but they really didn't want to die. And he said when he fell into that water and he was way down, and he was trying to swim with so many broken bones. And he said it, I'm not going to make it. Lord God, I don't want to die here. I don't want to die. No one will know I don't want to die. And he said, and he finally got up to the top, and something kept him afloat. Something kept him afloat. And he was in and out of consciousness. And all of a sudden, this Coast Guard was out there, and they scooped him up onto the boat. And they said, boy, do you know how lucky you are? He said, do you know how many people we pulled out of this water that are dead? He said, no, and I don't want to know. So long story short, what was keeping him afloat was a sea lion. It was a sea lion that was holding him up to keep him from drowning until the Coast Guards got to him. So today, if you notice, a lot of the shirts he sells and wears is a sea lion on the front.
Yeah, I'd be doing the same thing.
That is some story. And that's so crazy. I had to see him. And so when he was out here in Delaware doing the talk for a foundation, the Kenny Moore Foundation, which is one of my followers, by the way, that's how I connected with her. And she told me he was going to be a speaker. I said, I have to go. So I got to meet him. And what a humble man.
How old was he when he did that?
He was 17. He's now 37.
Okay.
And you can see, though, he's frail. He shook by the end of his 2-hour speech. He was shaking from the pain that he endured during that fall. And it's getting to him psychologically. He has neurological issues, but he travels the world to talk about his story. And he's really inspiring because this guy said since his fall, since he jumped, he's had 15 psych ward stays.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what did he do mentally to fix the issues going on?
He knows when he needs help, he goes right back in and gets help. He said, you can't do this by yourself, and there's times that you need help. Like I did when I said I knew I needed to go. He knew because he's got much worse than I do. He's manic depressive. He's got psychosis. And he says it. I have to medicate myself, but I know I do. Mm-hmm. And so my meds, and it's a constant work. You're not cured. You just manage it. You learn how to manage your mental illness.
Yeah, you get the tools. You get tools for your toolkit.
Not cured. Yeah. So that's his job, is to go around the country and the world and talk about and he's inspiring. So that's, I think, part of what kept me going and gave me the hope to get out there and start talking about my story. Yep. Which is, obviously I didn't try to take my life, but my son did. And from that, I suffered from severe mental illness from it. So I'm diagnosed with major depressive disorder, PTSD, and anxiety disorder.
If, just kind of get it from you, if somebody, say right now, is in a dark spot and trying to, get inspired or just kind of, get hope, how would you, it could be any age or just a human being, what would you tell them to kind of keep fighting?
Well, again, different things based on if you don't have a support system, you don't have family you feel you could call, or a friend you could call to say, I need help. I'm not doing well. Obviously, that'd be the first thing I'd say. But if you feel like you're alone, which many do, they don't feel anybody understands them or doesn't want to hear from them. Oh my God, a pain in the ass, this person's calling me again. I would say immediately call the 911 or the National Suicide Hotline, which is what I did. I called to actually find a place to go. Not that I was going to take my life, but I knew I needed help. And so I called for them to talk to me, and they were so great. I mean, they were just so kind, and they helped me, and they gave me a place locally where I could go. So it depends on where you're at in that darkness. But the main thing is, please, I cannot stress this enough, and I'm so angry when I think about it, do not take your life. You don't know the pain that you leave behind, the hell, the life sentence, as I call it, that you're going to leave behind for your family. Please don't do this. So call 911, call the national hotline, call me. I mean, I'm on the website. Reach out to me. Everything's there on my website. That's all I can say is you've got to do something.
No one else can. Yeah, no one can.
No one's going to know you need help. Only you can, do this. And you have to, because you're worth it. Don't you dare take your life. No one else can be you but you. You have so much to offer. There's, everybody's unique. We all have gifts. But when you're in that place of loss of hope, you don't see that. You don't see that gift.
No, you just need a little pull in the right direction sometimes.
Exactly. But there's people out there that need you to keep living. Don't do this. And that's all I could say is, please reach out to someone, even if it's just somebody you don't know, let them know that you need help. And we're all here for you. There's always people. Don't ever think you're alone.
Right. I agree. No, I appreciate you coming on today, Jill, and I'm glad we connected, and look forward to a relationship going forward. And we're right here in New Jersey, so once this thing's done,
we'll definitely meet up. But I still appreciate your podcast and what you do and your service to this country, and I do know firsthand what you guys sacrifice. I know what you give up as far as the holidays without your families, the shitty pay, the shitty food. I mean, all the crap that you guys have to go through. I know. My son told me some stories, boy, and we don't know this. The news doesn't tell you the truth. They don't really tell you what you guys have to.
And right back, and you're a veteran military mom, so you're a mom to us. So if you ever need anything, let us know.
Everybody out there, stay well. Wash your hands, wear your masks and gloves, and thank you, Brian, so much.
Got it. We'll be in touch. All right, Joe.
You take care and stay well.
You got it, Joe. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.